Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squad for boxing news and views from around the internet. Martin Bakole has re-announced himself to the heavyweight division, stopping one of the most durable men in heavyweight boxing, Kevin Johnson, knocking the American out in 5 rounds. And to put it in context, Kevin Johnson has only ever been stopped twice before this. Once was on cuts to Peter Milas, that was in 2018, and previously to Anthony Joshua, who also knocked him out. And when you put that in the context of Johnson's career, who's fought a veritable who's who in the heavyweight division, Vitaly Klitschko couldn't stop him, Daniel Dubois couldn't stop him, Kubrat Pulev couldn't stop him, Andy Ruiz Jr. couldn't stop him, Tyson Fury couldn't stop him, Derek Chisora couldn't stop him. The list of names just goes on and on and on. So it's a very impressive performance by Martin Bakole. It was a very clinical finish. He really just poured it on. Short, accurate, hard clubbing shots. Johnson, no response. The referee jumps in. And it really does sort of signal a sort of a turn in Bakole's career, because a year ago he was coming off a loss to Michael Hunter, a loss that not many people saw coming, because until that point, a very hyped heavyweight prospect. He was talked about as a potential heavyweight champion, but as soon as he got into the ring with Hunter, he didn't look good. He looked out of sorts, finding fresh air. Hunter outworked him, ultimately stopped him. Bakole was injured late in that fight, but he continued and got stopped in the final round of that one. I guess in hindsight, with what Hunter has sort of come through and done in the past year, it does look like that was one of the sort of more under the radar, better fights of 2018 that maybe will only be appreciated in time. But since then, he's made changes to his training, other bits and pieces, like he wasn't eating on fight day. There's a number of things that him and his trainer, Billy Nelson, have tried to rectify since that loss to Michael Hunter. So that could have been maybe the best thing for the Congolese fighter, who is now 14-1, because heading into that one, he was confident. He looked like he thought he could stop Michael Hunter in a few rounds, and ultimately it didn't pan out that way. He looked a little bit one-dimensional, but since then he's gone on a small run against some relatively durable characters. Like Marius Wach, he also stopped Marius Wach. Not many others have done that in the heavyweight division. Another relatively durable journeyman, Yatalo Pereira, who took Tyrone Spong 10 rounds. He knocked him out in 1 round. And I think those performances, a little under the radar for a lot of boxing fans, but in hindsight, with this Kevin Johnson win now on the record, I think some of these are looking better and better with time. So he has been going in there with guys that are hard to knock out, that can give him some work, give him some rounds, and he's doing the business. He is getting them out of there. His trainer, Billy Nelson, said after the fight, he was talking to Sky Sports afterwards, saying the Hunter fight, it was a blip, that there were a number of things wrong, they've rectified them, and Martin Bakole will be a heavyweight champion. And with the sort of power that he does possess, and you can sort of look at other guys that have fought Johnson, heavy-handed guys, but they haven't been able to get Johnson out of there. One notable name, I think, that's sort of on a similar level to Martin Bakole, at least in the prospect phase, is Daniel Dubois. He went in there, he couldn't stop Johnson over 10 rounds. Johnson made Dubois look a little bit one-paced and lacking ideas in that fight. But Bakole came in here with a game plan. He was able to execute very accurate shots and a very clinical finish. So very good result for Martin Bakole. And while this might go over the heads of a lot of sort of casual boxing fans, I think for those who follow the heavyweight division closely, they will realize the significance of stopping a guy like Johnson, who is very rarely stopped, even by top contenders. I mean, as I mentioned, Andy Ruiz Jr. only fought him just over a year ago. So there is a lot to take from this win. There's a lot to like about what Martin Bakole has done here, but has been doing, and quietly under the radar. So this will sort of put him slightly above the parapet now. And it remains to be seen what is the what next, because if they're going to try and guide him to a heavyweight title, that feels like it's probably the best part of maybe 18 months away, probably at the earliest, just because how titles are tied up, mandatories are due, and there's just very little wiggle room. But I guess the other thing to consider is, because Bakole has sort of rectified some things, he's looking slicker, more polished. He is looking better than he did before. It probably is going to be a little tough to get him some of the opponents that maybe they would like to get him in with. I have heard his promoter Eddie Hearn, because he's promoted by Matchroom now, talk about potential fights for Bakole, like he mentioned Filip Hrgović. This was just the other day. And that in itself, I mean, I think that would represent similar risk to the Michael Hunter fight, where Hunter was a very good sort of boxer. He was sort of darting in and out, working body head. I think you'd see Filip Hrgović doing some similar things. And I think Filip Hrgović could beat Michael Hunter. So it would be a very tough fight for Martin Bakole, should they get that one made. And given the power that he's got, if he can catch up with Filip Hrgović, who knows what can happen. But a similar thing for Hrgović, if they were to make that fight. He's got some real pop in his punches. But I do hope that they can make a couple of good in-house fights for Martin Bakole, because I would rather not see him against just opponents now, because obviously Kevin Johnson was an opponent. Yutalo Pereira was just an opponent. Even arguably Mariusz Wok, and that was before he signed on to Matchroom. Tail end of his career, he's just sort of cashing checks now. His durability was one of his features that's really sort of kept him with some credit for fighting him. Still, to some extent, an opponent. So Bakole, who is now number 39 in the world, the number one Congolese boxer, he needs a couple of guys to really get some tests with within the Matchroom stable. I wouldn't mind a Martin Bakole Hughie Fury fight, for example. I wouldn't mind seeing Martin Bakole in with some of these other guys who are on the fringes, the likes of a Zhili Zhang or a Sergey Kuzmin. There's a number of guys within Matchroom that they can start pitting him against that are at a certain level above where he has been fighting in the past year since that Hunter fight. He needs to build back up to that Hunter level at some point, but needs probably 1 or 2 steps in the interim. Who do you like for Martin Bakole next, or in the next 6 months or so? I do feel that they need to pit some of these Matchroom guys against each other, because otherwise what's the point? I mean, there's only so many guys and opponents that they can bring in to fight these guys. They've got to start actually having a bit of a almost like an internal knockout competition, because there is going to be belts and mandatories that are going to be on the line, down the line, and some of these guys can start positioning themselves as the sort of next cab off the rank type guy. And it remains to be seen whether Bakole can go all the way, but certainly he has made changes since that loss to Hunter. He's sort of come full circle now. He's now getting some of that buzz and that hype back that he once had, and he's looking like he's going in the right direction. What did you make of his performance against Kevin Johnson? Do you like what you're seeing from Bakole, and who should he face next? Let me know. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.